Most men have been inside a woman's body and had absolutely no idea where she actually was. Not physically. Physically, she was there. But the part of her that determines whether what just happened between you becomes something she thinks about for the next 3 weeks or something she quietly files away and never returns to, that part was somewhere you never had access to. Not because she was hiding it, because nobody ever gave you a map to it. Tonight, I am going to give you that map. And I am going to be more specific than anything you have ever heard on this subject. Not vague, not poetic, biologically, neurologically, psychologically specific. Because she deserves that level of understanding from you. And frankly, so do you. What I am about to describe is going to reframe the last several years of your intimate life. And I need you to stay until the end. Because what I save for the final section is the single variable that determines whether the experience you give her consolidates into genuine emotional obsession or dissolves by morning. The research on this is unambiguous, and it is the last thing most men would think to focus on. Before anything else, I need to say something that I want every man watching this to actually feel rather than just process. If you have ever been physically close to a woman and felt that invisible distance, where her body was present but something essential about her was somewhere you could not reach, that was not a verdict on your value as a man. It was the absence of specific information about what is actually happening inside her at the neurological level during those moments. Information that nobody provides. That ends right now. The part nobody talks about first here is something that will surprise most men who hear it. Her mind does not go quiet when intimacy begins. Most men assume, because their own mental experience during intimacy tends toward narrowing, toward a reduction in cognitive noise, that her mind follows a similar pattern. It does not. For most women, the prefrontal cortex, the analytical, self monitoring, evaluative center of the brain, continues running a background process throughout the entire experience. Not loudly, not in a way she is fully conscious of, but present, continuous, and completely determinative of everything that follows. Research published in the Journal of Sex Research identified what scientists call the emotional safety assessment, a real time neurological evaluation that the female brain runs during intimate contact. Her nervous system is continuously processing one central question that she has never articulated and will never directly ask you. Not whether you find her attractive, not whether you are enjoying yourself, whether she is genuinely safe to fully arrive, whether the man she is with is actually there with her, or whether he is somewhere else, performing, monitoring, pursuing an outcome that has nothing to do with her actual experience. This evaluation is not suspicious. It is biological. It is the same threat assessment architecture that runs in every social context, operating at its maximum sensitivity at the moment of maximum physical vulnerability. And here is where it gets critically important for you to understand. When the assessment resolves positively, when her mind determines that the man she is with is genuinely, completely non performatively present, the prefrontal cortex begins to deactivate. Not entirely, measurably, the monitoring loosens, the self consciousness recedes. In neuroscience, this is called ego dissolution in its mild form. It is not something she decides, it is what her brain does when the conditions are right. Her mind is also doing something simultaneously that most men would be genuinely surprised to know about. She is filing fragments, specific, emotionally charged impressions of who he is in those moments, not the mechanics of what is happening, the quality of his attention on her face, whether he looked at her or through her, whether his pace was dictated entirely by his own experience or was genuinely responsive to hers, whether there was a single moment where everything slowed and he was simply, fully, with complete, unhurried presence in contact with her specifically. These fragments are the raw material of the memory she will carry, not what happened, how he was while it was happening. She will replay them in the shower the next morning, in the quiet before she falls asleep 3 nights later, in the middle of a conversation with a friend when something reminds her and she does not explain why she went quiet for a second. Her mind is building a case, a verdict about who you are at the level that intimacy uniquely reveals. And the evidence it is collecting is not what you think it is collecting. There is also something else running in her mind that operates completely below her awareness, a continuous comparison, not to other men necessarily, to every version of this experience she has had before. Her nervous system is categorizing you, filing this specific experience against a template built from everything intimate that came before. And the filing is happening on one primary axis, not how you performed, whether you were real. A man whose internal experience during intimacy is organized around his own performance, who is at some level watching himself, monitoring how he is landing, managing the impression he is creating, transmits that self orientation through every point of contact between them. She cannot name it, but her nervous system reads it the way a tuning fork reads frequency. The specific, subtle absence of genuine reception in a man who is too busy transmitting to actually receive. And the man whose internal experience is genuinely organized around her, whose awareness is fully inside the contact rather than partially outside it, watching the contact happen, transmits that too, through the quality of his attention, through the specific way his hands move when they are driven by genuine presence rather than choreography, through the difference between a look that sees her and a look that is being given. Her mind files all of it, every fragment, in real time without her conscious permission. What her body is doing while her mind does all of that now here is the layer that operates in parallel, independently, in a completely different part of her nervous system. When a woman is genuinely aroused, not accommodating intimacy, not performing response, but neurologically activated in the real sense, her body enters a state that researchers have mapped with increasing precision and that most men have never had described to them with any accuracy whatsoever. The first thing that happens is remarkable. Researchers at the University of Groningen, using fMRI imaging during female sexual arousal, found that the genital sensory cortex literally expands during high arousal states, occupying more neural real estate than in a resting state. Simultaneously, the brain regions responsible for pain processing show measurably reduced activation. Her body becomes more capable of physical pleasure and less sensitive to discomfort at the same moment. But what most surprised researchers studying female arousal was this: the physical experience is not located where most men assume it is located. Stimulation of the female genitalia produces activation not only in the expected pelvic region of the somatosensory cortex, but in the nipple area, in the medial paracentral lobule, and in a finding that genuinely surprised the research team, in the cortical area associated with the foot. What this means in plain language is that genuine female arousal is neurologically whole body. Her physical experience during intimacy, when she is fully activated, is distributed across her entire nervous system in a way that male arousal typically is not. This finding has a direct and practical implication that most men miss entirely. The touches that seem peripheral, his hand at her neck, his fingers along her spine, his attention to her arms, her face, the inside of her wrists, are not preamble. They are not the warm-up before the event. They are activating separate, distinct regions of her somatosensory cortex simultaneously, building a neurological experience that is literally distributed across her entire body. A man who understands this does not rush through these areas toward an obvious destination. He builds something that her entire nervous system participates in. A man who does not skips the architecture of her actual pleasure to arrive somewhere she has not yet been fully prepared to experience. Her body is also, during this entire time, being flooded with a specific neurochemical environment: oxytocin, released through genuine physical contact, through emotional safety, through the specific quality of being with someone whose nervous system is genuinely regulated and genuinely present, is producing a cascade of measurable physiological effects. Her amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, goes quiet. Her cortisol drops. The autonomic nervous system shifts from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Her entire biology moves into the state where genuine emotional openness becomes not just possible, but inevitable. And here is the finding that ties everything together. Research on oxytocin release during intimate contact shows that the amount released, and therefore the depth of the neurological bonding and emotional opening produced, is significantly modulated by one variable above all others: the perceived genuineness of the contact. Whether her nervous system assesses the man behind the touch as genuinely fully present, or whether it detects the specific signature of performance, the slight self-monitoring quality, the orientation toward outcome rather than contact, and responds by reducing the oxytocin release accordingly. Her body has the same detector her mind has, running the same evaluation, on a different channel, simultaneously. If this is landing at the level I think it is landing, hit the like button right now. Because what we are building here is the complete picture of what is actually happening inside her during intimacy, the picture that most men never have access to. And every person who engages helps another man find this at the exact moment it can change everything for him. Now, let me give you the final piece, the one that determines whether everything her body felt becomes something that bonds her to you at a level she cannot fully explain, or fades. The thing that makes it permanent. Neuroscience of emotional memory formation has identified a specific phenomenon that determines how deeply an experience gets encoded and how persistently it returns. Emotional memories consolidate most deeply not during peak physical intensity. They consolidate during what researchers call affective convergence moments, brief windows in which emotional presence and physical sensation align simultaneously. The moment where both systems receive the same signal at the same time. In intimacy, this moment arrives when her mind's continuous safety evaluation resolves completely, when the monitoring stops, at the exact same moment that her body's neurochemical environment is at its most open. And what produces that convergence is not skill, not duration, not any variable that can be measured in the mechanical sense. It is the moment she becomes certain, not through thought, but through the specific quality of his physical presence, that he is not somewhere else, that his attention is not on himself, that there is no performance running, that the man whose body is against hers has, in this specific moment, no distance at all between his inner experience and the contact he is in, that she is not the context for his experience. She is the subject of it. When she feels that, and she feels it the way you feel a change in temperature before you have named it, her prefrontal cortex lets go. Her oxytocin peaks. Her amygdala goes silent. Her somatosensory cortex is fully activated across its entire distributed map. Every system converges, and the memory that forms in that convergence is not a thought. It is a physical imprint, something stored in the body rather than the mind. Something that returns not as a recollection but as a sensation, as the specific warmth and the specific feeling of being fully received that her body remembers independently of whether her mind goes looking for it. This is the memory she carries for years, not the most technically accomplished experience she has had. The one where a man was so genuinely, unhurriedly, completely present that her entire nervous system finally had nothing left to protect itself from. This is what she means when she describes an experience she cannot fully put into words. She is not being coy. She is accurately reporting that what happened exceeded the capacity of language because it happened below language. In the specific pre-verbal cellular level register where the body stores what the mind cannot contain. And the man who creates that experience does not do it through what he knows. He does it through who he is in those moments, through the specific quality of presence that only arrives when a man has done enough real internal work to have closed the gap, completely, with no residue, between what he feels and what reaches his hands. That gap is what most men spend their entire intimate lives maintaining without knowing they are maintaining it. And the woman on the other side of that gap feels it every single time. She cannot name it, but she knows. Now you know what she knows. Subscribe to this channel right now, because this is where we tell the complete, unfiltered, scientifically grounded truth about what happens inside a woman during the moments that matter most. The truth that most conversations are not willing to go near. Like this video, and share it with someone who has been physically close to women without understanding what was actually happening inside them. Because the distance between his body and her actual experience is not physical, it is informational. And that distance just closed. The next video goes even deeper. Do not miss it.